Pan-Africanism, and anti-racism.
I am Malcolm, I am Spirit, in a chariot I do ride. I am here with Harriet Tubman, Martin King is at my side. You are now my angel Betty, standing at the pearly gates. I will give you wings of freedom, you no longer have to wait. We believe in freedom, that is the one thing you should know. Here in heaven we love freedom, as above, so below. I am Malcolm, I am Spirit.
The problem of the black people in America is inseparable from the problem of oppressed people all over the world. And until the leaders of black America realize that our problem is inseparable from the entire international problem, we will be considered a minority, will be considered an underdog, and will be begging for the things that we should have had when we were born. And we still won't have them.
Malcolm X, why are you leaving the Nation of Islam, usually referred to as the black Muslim movement?
I'm glad you said usually referred to as police brutality and other ills that afflict the Negro community. But we won't be joining them, nor will they be joining us. But we will work together on any objective that we have in common, or that will be for the common good of the Negro community.
I believe that Mr. Muhammad and the Muslims have not done that in the past. Is that so?
Well, only because many of the so-called civil rights groups have been afraid. And in some cases, we ourselves haven't been as flexible as we could be. But things are shaping up now where if something isn't done to get some kind of unity among the groups, no matter what differences they have, things can get mighty bad.
You have spoken of Negro discontent with the progress of civil rights. What do you think about that?
Yes, the black people in this country are completely dissatisfied, disillusioned, and disenchanted with the entire civil rights movement.
You suggest that Negroes vote for in the coming election?
I wouldn't suggest that they vote for any party or either party. I would suggest that the so-called Negroes become politically mature, realize the power that they hold in the field of politics, and then once the person who is running is aware that this man is awakened to the power that he holds, then that person who is running will approach that Negro on a more intelligent plane. As it is right now, most of the Negro leaders sell out to the white politicians for crumbs. And an awakening, a political awakening among Negroes will make it impossible for the present Negro leaders to sell our people out as they've been doing in the past.
So you do think Negroes should vote?
Negroes should do whatever is necessary to bring about a complete solution to their problem. And when I say whatever is necessary, they should have the flexibility to do whatever is necessary to solve the problem.
Well, what is your answer to it now? Is it still separatism, a separate nation of your own in this country or in Africa?
Mr. Muhammad has said that if the problems can't be solved here, and by us being incorporated right into the mainstream of things, our people should be allowed to go back home to Africa. And if the government doesn't want us to go back home to Africa, he then says that some separate territory should be set aside in this country.
Do you think that there would be room in Africa for American Negroes? What will be the difference between your new movement and the Nation of Islam?
Well, the basic difference will be it'll probably be more flexible, and it's not my intention to teach among Muslims or those who are already Muslims, but to take Mr. Muhammad's message out among the non-Muslim so-called Negroes.
Well, you will work then with Negro groups that are working for integration?
Not work with them, but any of the Negro integrationist groups who have an objective in common with us. We can cooperate with them in that particular objective.
Do you believe that Negroes should continue in the nonviolent methods that they have been using in this country?
I don't believe in any kind of nonviolence. I believe that it's right to be nonviolent with people who are nonviolent. But when you're dealing with an enemy who doesn't know what nonviolence is, as far as I'm concerned, you're wasting your time. And I think that the people in this part of the world would do well to listen to Dr. Martin Luther King and give him what he's asking for and give it to him fast before some other factions come along and try to do it another way. What he's asking for is right. That's the ballot. And if he can't get it the way he's trying to get it, then it's going to be got one way or the other.
Well, there may be some tear gas ahead. Yeah. I say to you this afternoon that I would rather down the highways of Alabama than make a butchery of my conscience. Yes. I say to you as we march, don't panic and remember that we must remain true to nonviolence. I'm asking everybody in the line. If you can't be nonviolent, don't get in it. If you can't accept blows without retaliating, don't get in the line. If you can accept it out of your commitment to nonviolence, you will somehow do something for this nation that may well save it. If you can accept it, you will leave those state troopers glutted with their own barbarity. If you can accept it, you will do something that will transform conditions here in Alabama. And so I'm not worried this afternoon.
What is the purpose of the march? We're marching today to dramatize to the nation, dramatize to the world, that hundreds and thousands of Negro citizens of Alabama, but particularly here in the Black Belt area, denied the right to vote. We intend to march to Montgomery to present certain grievances to Governor George C. Wallace.
Mr. Williams, what are you going to do if you get stopped? What are we going to do if we get stopped? Well, we hope we won't get stopped. And if we get stopped, we're going to stand there and try to negotiate and talk to them into letting us go ahead to Montgomery.
If you're stopped today, are you going to march on Wednesday?
Well, we intend to march to Montgomery. It may take us 6 or 7 months or a year.
Danville on June the 10th in 1963. From the Bible Way Church to the courthouse, some people marched to be free. The night was dark, the journey long, as we marched to abreast. But with the spirit of those freedom songs, we didn't need no rest. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. And as we fell down on our knees, led by the Reverend McGee, he looked up and cried, Lord, please, we just want to be free. Then we heard the voice of Chief McCain as he cut across our prayer. I'll never forget those violent words, nigga, get out of here. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Don't you stumble, brother, don't you falter. Oh, mother, don't you weep. We're marching on to our freedom, although the road is steep. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights.
You are ordered to stop and stand where you are. This march will not continue.
we're fighting for equal rights. And as we heard those brutal words, we didn't turn around. But the water from the fire hose knocked us to the ground. And as we lay down on the ground, we were hit with billy sticks. I'll never forget that terrible sound as people's heads did split. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Don't you stumble, brother, don't you falter. Oh, mother, don't you weep. We're marching on to our freedom, although the road is steep. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Well, on June 13th, we marched again. They used their tear gas bombs. The grand jury indicted us on $5,000 bond. In Danville town's corrupted courts, we got no justice done. We were found guilty before the trial. The judge, he wore a gun. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Don't you stumble, brother, don't you falter. Oh, mother, don't you weep. We're marching on to our freedom, although the road is steep. Move on, move on, move on with the freedom fight. Move on, move on. We're fighting for equal rights. Move on.
Ever since we received the news of the expulsion and suspension of some 1,000 students, we felt that the Board of Education of Birmingham was engaging in an undemocratic, unconstitutional, as well as an unwise act. And I think the decision, which has just been rendered by Judge Tuttle of the Federal Court of Appeals, vindicates us at this point and reveals that these students were moving not only down a moral path, but down a constitutional path. I think it reveals the justice of our movement, and I think it reveals the justice of the situation in which the students were engaged. And this is a very happy moment for all of us. This is a momentous and significant decision, and I think it will mean a great deal to our movement and to the onward thrust of all that we are seeking to do to make Birmingham, Alabama a better city and to democratize this city as well as the state of Alabama.
And oh God, we thank thee for these young folk.
Yeah.
It makes us understand more and more what the Bible has said, that a little child shall lead.
Yeah.
Oh God, we thank thee for the federal judiciary.
Yeah.
Even though we've had some favorable decisions,
Yeah.
we still need you. We face every day mean men who loitering around on many street corners. Yeah. To give the 3 Negroes that will go into these schools in a few weeks. All right. Give them the courage that they need. Integration solved the problem or made it worse? When you integrate a white community seeking better housing, history here during the past 10 years has proven that the whites cut out. They flee to the suburbs, and the community that you thought you were integrating soon becomes another all-black slum, another all-black ghetto. But do you really think the white man today is going to vacate his jobs like he vacated his schools and vacated his houses? Whereas the white man could cut out and leave you the house or cut out and leave you the school, the white man just can't cut out and leave you that job. So you're going to have trouble. If the government can't defend us, what should we do? If the government doesn't want us to pick up a rifle, then defend us. Go find out who bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama. And if they can't find out, then let us go find out. And when we find, I don't want to hear that. And when we find out who it was who murdered our little female babies, then the law of justice is that a murderer should be murdered. That's the law of justice in any land. And if the government can't do it, then let you and I do it.
As I stand here this afternoon on the site of the church that was burned some few weeks ago and that probably led to the death of 3 young men who came here to investigate the situation, I have mixed emotions. On the one hand, I share the sorrow of many people over this kind of tragedy, and it reveals the low depths of man's inhumanity to man and the barbaric tendencies still alive in our society. But on the other hand, I think it reveals that there are churches that are relevant enough and that are concerned enough about the problems of people and working enough to make the gospel meaningful in everyday life, that people of ill will are willing to bomb them. Too often the church has been so devoted to the status quo that it has been the most popular institution in the community. And I think it is a great thing when the church recognizes that its responsibility is not to take a stand in moments of comfort and moments of convenience, but in moments of challenge and moments of controversy. And I think this church was burned down because it took a stand for something relevant, and they were willing to have freedom schools and other things that will help make Mississippi a better state and the people of Mississippi a better people.
Dr. King, how do you compare what has happened here with what is happening in Harlem now?
Well, I think we must confess and we must say that violence in Harlem is as bad as violence in Mississippi, if one accepts the philosophy that I follow. And I would be the first person to condemn violence, whether it comes from white persons or whether it comes from Negroes. And I think it is necessary to say to the persons who are engaged in violence in Harlem that it is wrong, it is the improper course, it is an impractical and immoral course. On the other hand, I think we must realize that certain conditions alive in Harlem and still existing brought the violence into being. And I think it is as important to stress this as it is to condemn the violence. The violence in Harlem today is symptomatic of the deeper unrest, the discontent, the frustration, and the seething despair of many Negroes as a result of poor housing, economic deprivation, lack of opportunities in so many areas of life, and the continuation of discrimination and de facto segregation. And I think it is just as urgent for New York City to map a program to get rid of the conditions of Harlem and the Bedford-Stuyvesant area of Brooklyn as it is to take a vigorous stand against the violence that is now existing.
Now, to make it a little more specific, Alabama has systematically, consciously, brutally, and inhumanly denied the Negro the right to vote. We are moving up the highway of freedom toward the city of equality. And we can't afford to stop now because Alabama has a date with destiny. Whatever it takes to gain the right to vote in this state, we are going to follow that course.
Today marks the beginning of a determined, organized, mobilized campaign to get the right to vote all over this state. Wherever we can vote by going to the places of registration and being registered without any difficulty, we will do that. They refuse to register us. We will appeal to a little man who happens to live in Montgomery at the present time by the name of Mr. Wallace. If he doesn't listen, we will appeal and challenge the state legislature. Then if they don't listen, once more, we will dramatize this whole situation and seek to arouse the conscience of the federal government by marching by the thousands on places of registration all over the
We feel that the very procedure itself is illegal in design to slow up the process. The questions are irrelevant, superfluous questions, and no one seeking to register to vote should even be expected to answer such questions. Section 1 is the only section that is needed for citizens to become registered voters, and we're going to contend for this through the court.
Down to make a mockery out of this courthouse, and we're not going to have it.
can be no gainsaying of the fact that as long as we have racial injustice, we will not have peace in the world. There can be no peace without justice, and there can be no justice without peace. And I think the struggle which has taken place to rectify the ills of racial injustice will contribute, and I should say this struggle is contributing to the bringing of peace and brotherhood and tranquility to the world.
I have the great honor on behalf of the Nobel Committee to hand over to you the insignia of the Nobel Peace Prize, the diploma and the gold medal.
I brainwashed by this blue-eyed white man. Some of them have brown eyes. Those of us who believe in black nationalism, who believe that we should migrate to our African homeland, on ourselves to see that new bridges must be built. Because in the minds of the majority of our people today, Africa is too far away. So the only way you and I can point them in that direction is build new bridges. We have to have the type of understanding of Africa and the type of understanding of our people here in order to build a bridge, a contact, a line of communication between the two. And once the lines of communication have been established, and our African brothers can stretch forth their hands and reach out, and we can stretch forth our hands.
from these great leaders. It came from Malcolm. It came from Martin. It came from it came from great thinkers and orators and writers like James Baldwin. And if you are thinking about Africa today, as you should be, given what's going on in the Central African Republic, what's going on in North Africa, what's going on in Mali, etc., this is a very important package because it sets the pace and gives you the background to help understand the continuing plunder of Africa by the Western powers. 516-620-3602.
516-620-3602. 516-620-3602 for the 6 CD package, which really whet your appetite for more, actually, because there's a lot here. I spent like all weekend listening to this. I haven't listened to the entire DVD because Mimi said that till now, but this is really fascinating stuff. But it's more than just fascinating stuff. It's the kind of stuff we need today to figure out what built a movement in the 60s. Some of the stuff we can use in terms of the ideas that were used back then. Some of it we can't. But we need to understand how a movement is built and how it grows and the ideas that were used back then. And this, there's a striking picture of Malcolm.
It's Malcolm in Africa, yeah.
God almighty.
Yeah,
but
and
we
in the
need
Caribbean.
to understand this and the international context that Malcolm was working in. We need to understand that also. Every era has new ideas, new applications, but we need to build on the past. And to that, we have to understand it. It's not just for entertainment. It's for the struggle that we need to wage today. And there isn't enough struggle given the attacks that we're under. 516-620-3602. 516-620-3602.
And that's $150.
For this incredible package. And the biggest thing of all is this station, which we need to preserve and make grow.
Mm-hmm. No, we absolutely do. It's fundamental. There is no issue that you are involved in that doesn't require a media outlet and a way of communicating, voicing positions, and using it as a mobilizing tool. And that's what's been great about WBAI for over 50 years, and it will continue to be if you put your money, in a manner of speaking, where your heart is, where your mouth is, where we know
ears are for this station.
Yeah, we have to really, but we have to sustain our own institutions. We're not going to capitulate to advertisements. We're not going to do underwriting. It's about having a really unadulterated political sensitivity to be able to really look at, yes, we can talk about and climate control, and have been doing that for decades. We can look at the issue of fracking. We're not encumbered by any of the institutions. We can look at police abuse of power. We can talk about the housing and the worker-based issues and why the unions themselves are decimated, and yet there are new forms of worker organization that are popping up all over the place in the low-wage workers' communities and in the immigrants' communities. Well, we are just about completed our evening here with you. I'm Mimi Rosenberg.
And I'm Ken Nash, and Building Bridges is on Monday nights, not next Monday because of the marathon, but if you're not used to listening to us, try us on Monday nights. We'll be on in 2 weeks from 7 to 8 p.m.
But in the meantime, you can call 516-620-3602. That is 516-620-3602 for the wonderful Malcolm X and for this absolutely riveting body of intellectual prowess and politically and culturally stimulating material brought to you from Malcolm X, who's as vibrant now as he was before we lost him in 1965. This is your opportunity, and it's your opportunity to say that you are in the house for BAI, and you are in the house to support work and workers and the working class. 516-620-3602. That is 516-620-3602. Get this absolutely handsome, wonderful, important package, our thank you gift for your support of this station. It is 9:59:04, and we make way now for Max. What is